So I wanted to talk a little bit about how Expedia thinks about product. And we really look at it as a science. It's, we do use art and to sort of drive and get us sort of started on how we think about things. But it's really about, it's in our DNA. When we look at our corporate mantra and the things that we stand for as a company, there's, these are things that we look at across the organization. But what really matters is this one over here. We believe in the scientific method. So anybody who's in the company, their opinion is equal in the eyes of data. And that's really important because good ideas come from everyone. We'll talk about it a bit more. It's really, take your ego and leave it at the table, because that's really where it doesn't belong. So I want to tell you a little bit about getting started with it. You just can't wake up and take your entire organization and turn it into a scientifically driven company. But pick like one thing that you're good at and sort of work outwards. So we thought, what are small things that we could start with and take those things, learn what we had learned from them, and then replicate it. So now you see, we started in product with the sort of test and learn methodology. And now it's gone across the entire company where our HR department does test and learn, our finance department does test and learn. Like everybody in the organization really has internalized this as part of the way that we think about stuff. And when we started off, we really sort of picked a single metric and we said, what is the one thing that we can measure that's actually important to us? And we sort of thought about, well, really what's important is when somebody buys from us. It's called conversion, right? How do you convert from being a shopper to a purchaser? And we moved past that, but we're way past that now. But that was the one metric that we started with. It was easy for people to internalize, it was easy to set up and test, and it was easy to prove out. And what we found was, oddly enough, the scientific method actually works, right? Learn fast, fail fast. This begins to drive the flywheel. So the more tests that you do, the more winners you get, because you should be trying to get winners all the time, the more money you make, and therefore you can take that money and plow it back into making even more money. So it's this gratuitous circle. And as you sort of think about it, it's like, how do you break things down, right? What's the job that we really want to do? What does the customer need? And I think that's the first principle you have to really get to, is think about what do you need as a company? How do you get there? And then think about that and say, okay, so now I'm in a travel company, so I really want to help people find travel opportunities for them. And then you think about what are the theses that I can apply to that? So what are the things that I would like to solve? And then how do I achieve that? How does that drive design? And how do I engage my designers, my technology teams, my analytics teams to move towards getting there? And sort of, here's where the theses are. Design some hypotheses around it, run some tests, learn from it, and rinse and repeat. But most importantly, it's really about establishing culture, right? And it's sort of with this gratuitous quote, culture eats strategy for breakfast. It's a lovely looking breakfast. But really, it's important to have that as your culture, and that's really the way that we think about how we do product. So when we sit at the table, we do a monthly product review, which is actually today. Everyone from our, the CEO of Expedia Inc. down to product managers sit at the table and they present their ideas, they take feedback, they provide input, and everyone is equal when they sit at the table. If you're the CEO of the organization, your opinion is only as good as the data that backs it up. And that's super important because it takes all of the ego out of the equation and allows you to focus on being better as an organization. So really, when you think about it, you have to know know why you're here, right? In our case, it's about matching shoppers to travel, right? Matching the hotel shoppers to hotels. It's the main idea, no decoration, right? What do you want to buy from us? Let me help you find it. Let me show you what you need. And we look at theses. So here's how we think about things, right? What are the problems we're trying to solve? And travel is really hard. It's really complicated, and you can make it really messy if you try. But really what we try to do is simplify as much as we can. I know we've got a long way to go, because that's what we do. But really the key is, customers are looking for outcome. They really don't want to buy a flight in a hotel. They want to go on vacation with their kids, with their spouse, or with their friends, and they want to have a great time, right? This sort of process of purchasing travel is kind of this necessary evil in the way of getting them on their vacation. So when we sort of thought about it, this is kind of how we think about it. I can predict the future in 4 easy steps. I have a look at the world around me. I make hypotheses about what those are. I design tests to prove the hypotheses, either positively or negatively. And I learn from it, and I rinse and repeat. And when I think about it, I don't start with the technology, right? I start by observing the world and saying, what does my customer want to do? What do they need? How do I think about that so that I can provide the services that they want? And then I think about it, because it has to be meaningful. Investing a whole bunch of money in something that nobody uses is kind of a big waste of time. So I have to look for a place where I can actually make a difference that it's important to people, right? We're a publicly traded company. We are about profit at the end of the day. Wasting time running tests on something that doesn't actually make money for us is not going to go anywhere. But if you pick things where you should invest your time and effort, those will be successful if you do what you're supposed to do. And then look at sort of what's working and what's not. And I think Jonah's conversation earlier was really great about finding themes. And we have the same problem that he has, where you go and you talk to product managers in India and in Japan and here and in the US and everywhere, and they're like, oh, dude, we're so different. You need to change everything for us. But when you break it down to key themes, we're all very much the same. And that's critical because it allows you to find the scale that you need to be successful. And when you think about it, it's like, what are the customer behaviors I might want to change? People have very specific ways of shopping for travel, very specific ways of doing things they do. And when you empower them by providing a whole bunch of data, you scare the hell out of them. But if you do it right, and you say, let me educate you, let me help you understand what's going on, such that you can do a better job of doing your trip plan, which is what you really want to do in the first place. So first things first, step 1, observe, be creative, right? If you look at the world, you will see opportunities for what people really want. And it's really not about making stuff up. It's really just thinking about different ways of actually observing the world. So is it through data? Is it through what you see? But you have to get out and observe. Everyone sits in their little ivory tower and goes, I know what the problem is for the customer. But they really don't talk to them. That's really the big mistake, because they don't come to you, right? Unless you really ask. You want them to come to you, but they don't. Look at the data that you have, right? There's tons of data we generate. We have one of Oracle's biggest database things, and it's a very technical term, I know. But we have one of Oracle's biggest data structures, and it's still not, you have all this data. How do you make use of it, right? And go and visit people. We get out, we talk to hoteliers, we talk to our customers. You sit in an airport, some guy's next to you, you see he's got an Expedia, printed itinerary. How'd you buy your flight? What'd you think of it? I work at Expedia, I'd like to ask your feedback. People love to give you feedback, it's fantastic. But don't, lots of companies now go, oh, I've got big data, I can do everything with big data. Not true. Nothing is better than asking people a question about what is important to you at this particular moment. And even the same people who travel with you, we have people who book their business travel through us, their family travel, their personal travel, everything. How can I use big data to understand what you want in this specific situation? The last time you bought from us 2 years ago was when you went on your honeymoon to Tahiti. You spent 20,000 pounds. Sure, I'd love you to spend that much money every time you come with me, but that's probably not the case that you're coming back to. And we actually go so far as to invite people to our office. Come on in and visit us. This is our office in Seattle. Actually, it's in Bellevue, just for the boring part of Seattle. But then we have a really awesome research team, and they do really crazy stuff like wire people up and show them stuff and see how they think about it, how they react. Do they love it? Do they hate it? Are they frustrated? And one of the best things we do is we sit down and say, pretend you're planning your trip and talk me through what you do. And we record it, and it's like, I'm trying to do this thing, I can't find what I want, and it's great feedback, it's fantastic. We use things like opinion labs to get feedback from customers, and they hate us when we screw up. But that's like the best feedback we can get. And then we go and we look at our competitors, right? Booking.com and others. Airbnb and so on, and we think about what they're doing, but we also look at other industries. Amazon's a great competitor in their own industry. They do some really cool stuff, and they have very much a test and learn methodology as well. So it's cool to see what they do. And really, it's important to think about science like a scientist, right? You look at things, you make observations. They don't necessarily have to be as geeky as this, but it gives you a starting point from which to decide on what you want to do. The best part about having a bunch of designers and people who think much more, whatever, artistically than I do, is that they really come out with both qualitative and quantitative observations. I can't understand what this is. So then we take those and we form hypotheses, right? There's the definition. I will read it to you because you can read. But really that's the important part. How do you construct your hypothesis about what the test should be? I believe something. So here's what they look like. You know, it's one change. I believe that by changing this one thing, based upon what I've observed, I can measure it because that's super important. And I get clarity on what I expect to learn. And learn is the most important thing about this. If you don't learn from doing testing, you've completely wasted your time. And then we run out, we validate it, make sure. But all the observations and all the hypotheses and all the gut feel in the world doesn't matter if you can't validate it. And so we look at hypotheses, right? These are really crappy ones. By doing something great, I'm going to get more money. How do you measure it? How do you know if you've been successful? You don't, right? So we do really complicated things like these, where I really get into how I think about the user problem, how I'm going to solve it, how I'm going to measure it, and then what I'm going to learn out of it. And that's actually the most interesting part about it, is because you come at the end of the day having learned something that you may not have thought was possible, or was different than you had imagined. So here's our hypothesis template, right? By making some change, we will see this quantifiable, measurable change. And we lead with the data, right? It's all about, I saw this thing, I wanted to see this data, I understand this thing. And it looks sort of like this, right? So everybody has opinions. The facts should always trump opinions. Democracy of information, everybody's opinion matters, everybody has good ideas, right? And then a bias towards learning, because if you don't learn, you failed. And as we thought about A/B testing, this is kind of how we got into it, right? We run smoke tests. We're not even the functionality. It's just purely like, here's a link, would you click on it? And we go, hey, thanks for clicking on the link, now we know you're interested. We may not necessarily give you the functionality, but I've saved $1 million in dev effort by virtue of saying, I got 10% of the people who came to this page clicked on this link. And you go, A+, now it's worth investing in it. Then you take some features and you put them on the page, really run them in front of people. And then you say, this worked reasonably well, how can I make it better? And again, rinse and repeat. And how do you know if your test worked? Well, this is important, right? Be bold, right? You gotta learn. We hate these kinds of tests because these are useless. I ran all these tests and I'm learning. Don't care. Waste of time. But I love these kinds of tests, even if they're losers. No one should be penalized for running loser tests because you've learned what not to do. Always get signal, right? Neutral teaches you nothing. And as a designer, you should be doing stuff that scares the hell out of you because you need to know that people actually are paying attention. So we're going to do a live action test right here in this room, okay? So here is my control. And here's variant 1. Anyone see the test? Anybody? It's hard. There's one little dot right over there. Do you see the dot? It made a huge difference, didn't it? I totally wanted to start at that point, but I did not. Oops, not at all. There. Go back and do this properly. How about this test? It's variant 2. A little bit more noticeable, right? It never suddenly disappeared off the planet. That's what gets you signal, right? That's the most important part. Also, more traffic, as you probably know, equals faster significance. And we will run tests for up to months at a time to get significance on certain features on smaller points of sale, smaller sites. etc., because we want to get there. But what we really want to do is understand where people are going. So the more people you put on your test, the better. And here's like the best part, right? Be humble. I've failed 700 times. I realized 700 things that didn't work. And that's increasingly important because if you penalize people for making or running failing tests, then you break everything. And you really don't want to do that. It's part of the culture of bringing in new ideas, because if people feel afraid to test and innovate, you'll lose completely. And really focus on your area with results. Some people like test a little of this, a little, it's like sprinkling fairy dust, right? It doesn't work. You've got to really think about what you want to come out at the end of the day. And so we also think about how people use the site, right? It's two very different kinds of people. People come to the site and want to buy stuff from us, and people come and they use stuff because they're planning trips. They're not always buying at the same time. But the folks on the right-hand side take much longer to get to significance because they're a smaller, they're more like the little dot in the star, or the previous slide that I showed. But they're also super useful because as we think about people who don't necessarily buy with us, these are the kinds of tests that are super interesting. And our customers vote every day. Some of them take longer, so let me stop there. Okay, so the other thing too is to pick segments that are actually going to be significant. If you are running a business, a feature that's aimed at business customers, and you include them in the entire world of universe of people that you're working with, that's not going to work out very well because these people form a subset of the larger picture. And how do you know that the signal that you're getting, the learnings that you're getting are actually related to these people? So setting up your test correctly, making sure that they are focused on just the folks who are either business or single travelers or family or whomever. How do you make them, how do you only look at them in the first part of your test analysis? So now you get to significance, so now what, right? Every month we sit down with everybody, we talk about the tests we did. We take feedback as a gift. We talk to people. We say, hey, I did this really cool test, but it really didn't turn out the way I thought it was. And the other guy goes, well, that's dumb. It was that little star in the corner. Nobody saw it. That was stupid. Try that again, right? Force product managers to explain the wins and losses. Did you understand what went wrong? Why did customers not do what you expected them to do? Or did they do what you wanted to do? And that was fantastic. Before we run tests, we actually all our tests run through peer review. So we all sit down once a week, and everyone comes forward with their tests, and we say, here's my test, here's what I think it's going to be, here's my hypothesis, here's what I expect to see out of it. And everyone sort of kicks the tires on the test that they'd like to run, which is super helpful. And then for tests that are successful, we'll go back and run them, rerun them every couple of years, because the world changes. Our technology stack changes, the way that we think about things, the way that people use the site, have all changed. It's really important. Even if you get a big winner, go back and re-verify it, because sometimes the data was wonky. And this is really important. The science without discipline isn't science, right? You have to think about what you want to get out of it. It forces you to be thoughtful almost all the time. So if we think about science, and we know what to do, the rest is super easy, right? It is. But you take the art that you inspired, but the science is what you actually instructs you. So we all know this guy, and years ago he said, all of the Apple products will fit on this table. And this is about focus, and how we as a company will get better as Apple. We're gonna, all the stuff we sell will fit on one table. That's an awful lot of tables. It's really important to have focus, because without focus you really can't get there. So when we think about focus, we have company priorities. Our leadership team sits down once a year and they say, or less or whatever it is, and they say, here are the boulders that we're going to take down this year. That gets converted into site strategies or line of business strategies like I work on. We stage inceptions within the company, so we do cross-functional groups to talk about larger projects we're working on. Those get broken down into sprints, and then we take everything back to the monthly product reviews, and we tell people what we got. And it just builds a cycle, right? We do things like this, where we put tons of sticky notes and kill lots of trees. But it's great because it puts lots of people in the same room, and folks from our customer operations group, from our technology teams, from finance, from fraud, from the guys who talk to our airline partners, all come in the room and we go, we have this really big idea. This is what we want to do. What do you think? What are things that you think would make this better? All those people write their stuff down on little sticky notes, and we plop them up, and then we take all that information, we consolidate it into a series of tests, or projects and tests. We hand them off to our teams, we use Sprint, and then every month we sit down and go, hey, how's it working out for you? And usually we get lots of feedback, which is excellent, because that's what we want. So, if you remember nothing else, take big, bold bets. They're really important. Break them down. You have to test one thing only at a time, because otherwise you just don't know what was right or what was wrong. And everything starts with observations. Look at the world around you. Talk to people. Get feedback from your customers, from your partners, from people that you think have a pretty good idea. Lead with the data, understand what you should be measuring, and use the lab as your friend to sort things out, get things started. We do tons of stuff with prototyping and feedback through that to give us an idea of what actually is interesting to people, but we always go and test it. We focus the hypothesis on one change at a time, because otherwise you don't know what you've done. And then we test a lot. Retest a lot. And then always learn and feedback into the system. So everything that I've learned from what I've done in tests over the last month gets rolled back into everyone. Everyone can read the diagrams, the results of what I have, my hypotheses, everything. Everyone through the company can challenge those. It's super helpful because it allows me to get better as a product manager as well. And be disciplined and trust the technique. As soon as you lose faith in test and learn, everything falls off the rails. You either have it or you don't. Finally, always make adjustments. Always make tweaks. That's it. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Brian. Another excellent talk. Very, very good. I hope you guys found that insightful. So that's it for this evening. I was going to say that before we go, we've got some time for some questions. I'm not too sure how much time, but for sure.
We've got enough time, guys.
Cool. So we've got questions over here.
Just,
yeah.
I literally agree with everything you said. It's great and a brilliant exposition of how we should do things, the good practices. How do you feel about the fact that when you run A/B tests on things, it necessarily means that you do something different and that therefore not consistent with the usual growing experience that someone has? Do you think that, how do you feel about that? Is that something that you find affects the test or mitigates it in some way?
things we do are always on theme. So we work with our UX team very closely, and they design sort of North Stars and where we're sort of going. What we try to do is keep our tests within sort of swim lanes so we get there. Yes, we're not testing something over here and something over there. That's unhelpful. But we are moving towards a goal, and we're sort of iterating and testing as we try to get there. So we should never get in a situation where I go, ooh, this is like really gone off the rails somewhere. That should never happen.
So, could you be able to talk about some features, some particular features that you tested from UX and UI point of view? For example, tests that you made and made the experience better?
I have hundreds of those.
Can you talk about one particular feature, which is one?
Sure. There's one that we just actually ran, which is interesting. One of the parts of Expedia I work on is sort of maps and all that sort of stuff. And we had tested initially, we were putting 40 hotels on the map for mobile phones. We do much more for desktop, but on mobile we did 40. And we did a test where we did 25 pins, and then we did 10 pins for another group of people. So which do you think would have won? Speak loudly. So it was 40 originally, and then we tested 25 and 10.
Yeah, I think the 25.
Actually 10 by a mark.
I mean, yeah, I thought
Which
it
was
was
a surprise.
25, and then you said 10. So I think the smaller number means. Yeah.
It surprised me because
Why?
people had always said more is better, like more hotels is better, people want more choice, whatever.
I
And
don't
there was this part of my brain that didn't like it because it would sort of be really too much, the cognitive load on people with 40 hotels is obviously too great. People like small number of hotels. The good news is we load new hotels as you zoom in or pan or whatever. It's really helpful. But that was sort of one that really caught everybody because we actually presented it today to the leadership team, and they went back and said, "Really, 10 was better?" I'm like, "Yeah, 10 was better." Like, oh, okay, that's good. But that was one that just stunned me that it was quite that much of a difference in terms of people's engagement and their ultimate conversion rate. Yeah, it was multi-variant, so we did ABC.
Just a quick one, how are you running your internal peer reviews? Is that just like a weekly thing, everyone gets to throw in an idea, or?
Yeah, we have weekly team meetings where it's entirely driven. It's an hour a week where product managers are expected to run their current or upcoming tests through before they go to dev. So when they're at sort of concept stage, we've got your hypothesis, your UX guys have sort of filled in the blanks in terms of what we want to do from a UX perspective. They present those in terms of to the larger team, and people provide them with feedback.
At what level can someone contribute a test? Is it just anyone can throw in an idea, or?
Yes, within our product team, and we have a bunch of partners who also do, so from different parts of the organization, so our loyalty team, checkout, a variety of different people all can provide tests. So we have a part of it is purely for hotel shopping folks like me, and then we have a larger, our secondary part of the thing where anybody can come from within the organization and present their ideas.
Oh, thank you.
And that way, the beauty of that too is we hold everything to the same standard. That's kind of the importance of that.
We have an idea here.
Thank you. I absolutely agree with you that it's really important to kind of leave egos on the table and kind of really test things. But I guess I've come across situations where I find not every hypothesis is testable via analytics data. I was wondering what you do in those circumstances.
Ultimately, there should be data. Like when you create your hypothesis, there always should be an outcome that you're expecting. So how you measure that may vary. It may not be something as simple as conversion. We're starting to play with things, a lot more things around engagement and how do people, how does something we put on the site impact their ability, they're coming back a week later, whatever the time may be. So what we do is when we construct the test, we construct the analytics around it, we actually build that into how we think about the analytics for the test. That's why it's so important to get that correct up front.
So if I think about a lot of things where it's about adding enjoyment to the experience, that's often something that's hardest to actually measure. So if you think about Citymap, for example, their jetpacking and vehicles and stuff like that really help with advocacy, but it's very hard to measure that and know that I can show this out to my friends and then they download it. It's not something you can easily track with analytics. For me, that's something where actually lab testing or qualitative testing in other ways can actually reveal insights a lot more easily than just relying on analytics data alone. So I question to some degree the kind of this analytics data is king is trying to figure out how you get both the qual and one together to tell both sides of the story.
Yeah, we do get a fair amount of stuff like that, but I think there's, in your example, I think there's an opportunity where you allow people to share the apps, or put your friend's phone number in or send it by WhatsApp or whatever. That gets as a smoke, as a super simple smoke test. You could do something like that where you perhaps only give it to sort of 10% of your audience and say, I'm going to give you this functionality and just see if you use it and see how many people do it and how many people they send it to, and then try and use that as a proxy for others within your larger user base. So it's really how do you construct the test. You can, digital now, you can measure most everything. It's not like sort of the old days of traditional media where you kind of had to hope that people watched your ad on TV or saw it in a newspaper. It really is quite trackable if you set it up.
Anybody else? Oh, well, front anyway. You run tests, yeah, quite often. You say some of them even run for 2 months. At the end of that, what is the integration process towards releasing that to the rest of your user base? Is that something that happens over a prolonged period of time, or is it just rolled out?
Yeah, the cleanup. So the question is, how quickly are we able to turn tests once they're called into released code? So we've worked very hard within our organization to bring down the tech data, and that's sort of the time between we call tests and the time we roll them out. So currently, that time is somewhere under 20 days. So when the test is created in the first place, we do everything in Mingles or Youre or whatever. And when you create the test, you also create a cleanup card. So we either, as soon as that test gets called, the secondary card gets executed, and that either takes the code out of the code base or it rolls the code out globally. So functionality that we call is generally out on all the points of sale for 100% of the population within about 20 days.
Okay, and then you run another test, I presume, on that?
Yeah, it's beat the champ, right? So here's the new champ, and we look at it and go, okay, that was pretty cool. We did, to the previous example, we did 10 pins. So then we'll test 20 pins and some other number 30 pins and see if that, where that happy place is in that as well. And then wherever that is will be the winner, and then we'll test against that as well. Continuous refinement.
Anybody else?
My question was similar, I think, to the second question you had. The presentation didn't have enough examples for me, and you gave one of the hundreds that you had. I was wondering if you had some other anecdotal example that would just be interesting. On the positive side of this.
Yeah. Trying to think of a good one that sort of was unexpected. I mean, there's tons that we do around, the reason you see some of the, urgency messages in case in point. So, only 6 hotels left at this price. Those work really well, right? We hire a bunch of behavioral psychologists, and they go, yeah, this scares the hell out of people. Never mind the hotel, right? And so they quickly, those became super popular, and now they're all over the site. We're like, whoa, we gotta step back a little bit from those. There's just too much dancing below it. So those kinds of things. We test the order that we put our hotels in sort is tested almost continuously, and we actually build technology that actually just automatically optimizes itself over time. So there's no human that's playing with it. The machine is continuously testing itself and improving itself, and it sort of spits out numbers. Says, I found this variant, it's this much better, now I'm going to do this again, and it just carries on. So there's a bunch of things that we do like that as well. Sure.
So you mentioned at the end that you redo tests in the future that you've seen successful. Do you redo ones that you've seen fail as well? Yeah.
Because sometimes the world changes, right? I think that's the important thing is, 2 years of web life is like 12 years of real life. And so if you go back and you retest something, people may not have been ready for a feature that we rolled out. It may have been too complicated, it may have been too tech heavy, so your browser bogged, particularly in mobile where bandwidth is constrained. So if you think about 3 years ago, when everyone was on 3G or less, or 2.5G, the bandwidth and the amount of data that we pushed to your phone was significantly different. There's latency in terms of how fast things would render. With 4G, we can do a ton of stuff. We can push stuff to the phone now that we could never do historically. And so what may have taken the page 20 seconds to load a few years ago now loads in 2 seconds or 5 seconds or whatever. It's completely usable in terms of how people think about stuff.
Yeah, sounds good, Brian.
Yeah.
There's a famous anecdote, which must be true because I read it on the internet, about a Google designer who ran away screaming after he was asked to test 45 different shades of blue. Right? And it drove me nuts.
We call those Pantone tests. We don't do those anymore.
Yeah. And I what I'm wondering about from the story you told is what science you're doing. Like, is there anything you have been able to do that kind of gets you out of the level of asking lots of little questions and driving the questions that you ask? Kind of.
Yeah. And I think this was about a year or two ago, probably a couple of years ago, we were doing a lot of those hand-to-hand tests because we had told our teams to get their test velocity, so do more tests. And they went, well, how's the fastest way I can do more tests? Well, I'm going to test red versus yellow, yellow versus green, green versus blue, blue versus purple, blue versus orange, these 50 shades of gray. And it's like, no, that's dumb. Stop doing that. And so as a management team, we stood up and said, those don't count anymore. Like, those are 0 tests. And to be fair, 99% of them are neutral anyway, or non-learning tests. So what we do now is we've got people to test along the themes, and that has helped immensely in terms of working with our UX partners to say, here's a theme, here's a design concept that we want you to work towards. How do you come up with a series of hypotheses that drive you towards an end state, and how do you solve that problem for a person? And that's been amazingly helpful in taking those kinds of tests off the table.
Brian, I think it's the last one.
Okay, cool. I was just wondering, because you're working in the travel industry, I was wondering, did the results you get back vary by season?
They shouldn't, because it's true A/B testing, right? So when seasonality should be taken out of it, I'm splitting the audience 50-50. So even if I'm testing beach getaways in October, where people are obviously buying them, because I'm splitting the audience 50-50, I should be getting a pretty clean read on the way things are. There may be rare exceptions where that may not necessarily apply, but I would say in general that it should be, because you're truly, if you get your segmentation right, if you're truly doing 50-50 splits, you should get the right answer at the end of the day. Thank you.
One more, anyone else? Okay, we'll squeeze one more in.
So, fantastic, and in terms of big hypothesis driven, I work at a company that does a lot of marketing and messaging through other mediums to promote a digital product, which is the core thing. And so, can you do the same thing with marketing as well?
Yeah, sure. I mean, when you say marketing, you mean traditional marketing, or do you mean
like generally
email
or
or
activity, like how you go through the process of creatively driving interest in the product?
Absolutely. I mean, the hypotheses process should apply to everything, right? By doing this, I can get this, which will measure like this, and this is what my test should look like. Whether it's in direct mail or in marketing activities in print or what have you, at the end of the day, you're doing it because you're expecting to drive an outcome or change a consumer behavior. If you're not doing that, then there's a different problem that you need to solve. But really, when you get into it, the core, as Joe would talk about themes, I talk about themes, everyone will talk about themes, right? And thematically, you should be able to get to the same place because you may need to construct the way that you talk about your test differently. You may construct the way that you measure the test a little bit differently. But at the end of the day, you really should be able to get the same process as the way you think about things and the way that you construct your hypotheses and your tests and so on to get the learning that you want at the end of the day.
Brian, thank you very much. A big round of applause for Brian.